Even though he had all of these surgeries and, he was going through it, I can tell he's not the same person, Because the cancer returned, they removed his nose. They started taking all that apart because it was getting sick again. All in all, it was 15 surgeries.
And you can imagine how difficult it is to go through life without your nose. These are people who've been through the worst thing you can experience, losing a limb or losing a part of your face.
He says that he feels like he's just been cast aside, like he's just not part of society. He's not, a regular person. And that's really hard because you want your parent to grow up and get older and not have all of these issues.
So anaplastology would be replacing parts of the face that are missing by an artificial material.
We do nothing else but work on that patient and focus on all the details that are needed. The personal investment that Maddie has with patients is unbelievable.
I'm very proud of what I do, but I also take it very seriously. And the relationships that I have with my patients are for life because they can finally move forward from what has held them back.
He just wants to feel like a person again. He wants to be able to be presentable. Dr. Maddie's been the only person he feels that has been able to help him.
We need to get the word out that this is an available possibility.
What floor? Okay. Okay, vamos para el 5 piso. This is my dad, Nelson, and he has 7 girls, 7 daughters, which is really interesting for him, I'm sure.
Yo soy nacido en Venezuela, pero me crié en Italia.
He was born in Venezuela, but he was raised in Italy.
Estudié.
He studied.
Me considero un buen deportista porque juego fútbol.
He considers himself a very great athlete,
Soccer.
And he plays soccer really well.
Como dije anteriormente, era muy bien parecido.
And he was also very good looking.
Y por eso, como dijo una de mis hijas, tengo 7 hijas.
And then he said he was good looking. He's like, that's why I have 7 daughters.
Okay.
In all of the photos that I've seen of him, he's always had this mole on the side of his nose, right underneath. And the mole started changing color, it started growing. And we, his daughters, kept on telling him, hey, that doesn't look right. But like most men, he'd put it off and he'd put it off. Then by 2010, it was already okay, I think that's really where it started scaring him. We didn't start this whole procedure until 2017. All in all, since 2017 to about 2020, it was 15 surgeries. They grabbed part of this skin here, the skin graft, reconstructed it so that he would have 2 little holes there.
So they grabbed from here and they grabbed from his leg.
And then also too, the cancer didn't just eat his nose, it also attacked
they removed
the inside of his
here,
mouth.
they used some...
That one was probably the roughest one because he couldn't breathe and he was super scared. I feel like before, when he hadn't gone through this, he would always mess with us. He was always messing with us and just joking and just had this different aura. And then this happened, and when we do get to see each other, I can tell he's not the same person,
En mi vida siempre he tenido la cabeza en alto.
In his experience, in his life, he's always carried himself very high and in high regard and very confident.
Y ahorita me siento muy deprimido.
And right now, in this, how he is right now, he feels depressed. He worked at a restaurant casino.
Y por lógica, por mi cara, no pude regresar.
And of course, because of his face, he couldn't return. He couldn't work there anymore. All of his ability to, socialize and connect to people came through in that industry. So then, because he likes to work and that's what he needed, he got into the shared driving and has been a Lyft and Uber driver. When someone calls a car service for him, when they see his profile, he explains there that he has cancer, he can't speak properly.
Y me he sentido muy defraudado.
And that makes him feel
muy mal.
Really sad. Because of the situation and because he can't really speak, a lot of people report him like that he's on drugs.
Yo nunca,
and he never, in his life.
Nunca, Dios sabe que es verdad.
I never knew that. I didn't know that people were saying that about him or reporting him. Every time he would talk to us, he would say that he was doing great and that he had like 5 stars and like all these trips, and you know, he wasn't really forthcoming about his struggles. My sister got married, and that was like a big deal because he ended up going, which was really nice, but
ellos no lo saben.
We don't know this. He's saying that there's something really hurtful, painful.
Yo estuve en el matrimonio de una de mis hijas, pasé todo el matrimonio con máscara. No hay una foto donde yo no tenga la máscara.
He says that at that wedding, my sister's wedding, that something that was really painful is that in all the photos, he comes out with his mask on.
Y lo peor que un hermano mío nunca ha querido ver mi cara.
His only brother, really. I mean, he has other brothers, but this is like his mom's son, his mom and his dad's son. He hasn't wanted to see it.
Y eso me duele porque es mi hermano.
And that hurts him because that's his brother. He doesn't have a lot of friends, but the friends that he did have, they don't really come around anymore.
Posiblemente sea yo el culpable.
And he says it might be his fault because he's not at the places where he is socially to be that person.
Porque tengo miedo.
Because he's scared.
Que me rechace, que me humillen.
He's scared that they're gonna reject him or make him feel bad, humiliate him.
Quiero volver a recuperar un poco de mi autoestima, de mi personalidad.
So he's been in this transition for the last 2 years, living this type of life, I guess. And then his wife started to help him figure out what was the next step. What could he do about it to help this situation out? And they started researching and calling people and contacts, and they found Dr. Maddie. Maddie?
Hi.
Hi, how are you? It's my dad.
Nice to meet
Nice
you.
to meet you.
Hey.
Hi, nice to meet you.
How are you, Maddie?
I didn't recognize you with your long hair.
He's a little nervous.
Oh, don't be.
Oh, okay.
Hi, I'm Maddie Singer. I'm a clinical anaplastologist with medical art prosthetics. I've been doing anaplastology and facial prosthetics for about 20 years. Today, we're going to take an impression of your nose. So we're going to start with that. When we think of anaplastology, for the most part, we mean replacing parts of the face. It's come to also include fingers and toes and things like that. But for the most part, when we think of anaplastology, we think of like noses, ears, eyes, parts of the face that are missing by an artificial material.
I think his self-esteem was really like shocked.
How could it not?
You know?
Of course. But we're going to fix that. Basically, we're the worst case scenario. You've probably thought, like, I need to get this fixed. You go to a reconstructive surgeon who indicates to you that you might not be a good candidate, either because of age or the condition of the tissue, in which case the alternative is to get a prosthesis.
Relájate, relájate, relájate. Relájate.
Either the person will find us, medical art prosthetics, on the internet or they hear from our doctor. You know, we have a long reputation. Medical art prosthetics has been around about 40 years now.
I set up my own private little practice in Dallas, and that was in 1985, very early, about April or May in 1985. So medical art prosthetics has kind of evolved from a single solo practitioner in a very tiny office in Dallas to a national network of 6 anaplastologists. When a patient needs a prosthesis, we welcome them for 3 or 4 days, and in a very kind of focused, concentrated approach, we do nothing else but work on that patient and focus on all the details that are needed.
Yeah, ves.
Yay! Da.
That wasn't so bad, was it?
Yeah.
The wonderful thing about anaplastology is you have to be a science person, you have to be a problem solver, and here's the most important part, you have to want to work with people. You have to be good at talking to people and making them feel good. They've had a terrible journey. These are people who've been through the worst thing you can experience, losing a part of your face.
Okay.
Ready?
Let's go.
Thank you.
Give me a hug.
Thank you.
So what I'm doing right now is I'm filling the negative, which was the impression that I just did of Nelson, with a dental stone. When this hardens, I'll get a replica of his face in that position that I can use to sculpt over to make the custom prosthetic. And by the way, they do the same thing here in the film industry. When I was a little kid, Planet of the Apes was on television. It was like the movie of the week. And I remember seeing those makeups and thinking, I was fascinated. I went to the library and I took out a book called Making Monsters by Al Taylor. I think that was the name. It talked about how they made these things. And that's when I started doing facial prosthetics myself. I ultimately went to NYU Film School. I moved out to LA. Was lucky enough to start working on movies and television shows. It was in the early 90s, I worked on a movie called The Bicentennial Man, and Robin Williams played a robot. And I worked at Henson's on George of the Jungle. I worked on Species 2, I can go down the list. It was really a remarkable ride working in special effects, and I loved it. Well, it just so happened, this is about the birth of the internet, and I remember seeing some video of this guy named Greg Guion. He was doing these facial prosthetics for people missing parts of their face, and I thought, this is amazing. I would love to do this. This is so up my alley. And I remember thinking, this guy's got to be the best I've ever seen, because I started researching it, and there was nobody as good as Greg. I mean, he was like on a whole other level. So I decided I was going to quit the effects industry, and I was going to be an anaplastologist.
I've been fortunate enough to run into several other really talented medical artists and anaplastologists and a few others from other fine art backgrounds. Maddie's unbelievable.
So this right here is a great picture for me for reference. I'll literally sculpt it from my phone. And I sculpted in a wax, and the reason we sculpted in a wax is so that we can try it on. First thing I gotta do is build it up to the length that I want. I ended up doing my training at the University of Tennessee, where I was there about 18 years. Became the director of anaplastology and ultimately left. Took a job at the Roswell Cancer Center, and then the pandemic happened. Ended up corresponding with Greg, and I've been working private practice for Greg and for medical art prosthetics for now about 3 years. So I ultimately ended up working for the man who inspired me to get into this field to begin with. So I got a lot done.
Oh, we're excited.
So I'm gonna get you a chair, honey.
Whoa.
This is the wax, by the way.
Oh my gosh.
Here, have a seat, honey.
Papi, siéntate.
Open your eyes.
Abre los ojos.
How's that?
Oh my goodness.
Here. We can see how we're doing. This is just the wax.
No es el final, papi. Eso no es de verdad. No es el final.
Espera.
Seeing her start the process and just see how he like lit up during that first experience that we had, and when he first saw how he would look initially, I think was really special. I started crying. I felt really happy for him because I got to see like that glimpse of my daddy was joking around. So I'm really excited for him.
No llore ya. Suerte.
What do you think of that profile? I think it's a good-looking nose. What do you think?
It is, very much so.
Feliz, estoy muy esperanzado.
He has hope. He's hopeful. He's really happy. This whole process has been really seamless. Dr. Maddie has been very helpful and just really warm.
Tenía tiempo que no veía algo agradable, algo muy bonito.
I'm sorry.
Ya tiene 4 años. Too much time.
He said that he hasn't seen himself look normal in a really long time.
So today, what we're going to be doing is ultimately, I'm going to create the silicone, and we're going to pour it into the mold, and I squish it together like this.
Lo aplasta.
You'll get to see, I'm going to mix the intrinsic color today. When I look at your skin color, we want the lightest color. So when I'm looking at this, I'm going to look for the color that's like the lightest color in his color palette. So skin matching, color matching is critical, critical, critical. When I do a prosthetic, what I do is I have to find what's called the intrinsic color. When I look at my face right here, if I had to do my nose, that color between the colors, that kind of that banana color right there, right? That's kind of the color I go for. I've got my swatch right here. So I'm going to be using this right now for my color swatch to match, to do the bigger batch. The work that we do as an anaplastologist is art at the highest level of hyperrealism. I treat it kind of like Mission Impossible. I'm like, how can I make something that no matter what is going to fool you all the time? The main reason I love doing a nasal prosthesis is because this is completely creative. There's nothing there, and it's right in the middle of the face. It's a really big challenge, and it's incredibly transformative. So when I do it right, the person is so happy because they can finally move forward from what has held them back. And then I start doing the things that I think really bring it to life. That spatter, the natural spatter we have in our face, that's called mottling. We replicate the mottling as well. Some people replicate the mottling different ways. I do it kind of an old special effects way. I actually use toothbrushes. And what I do is I actually dip my toothbrush in pigment and solvent that actually like spatter it. And I can get little teeny random dots of the color that create that really natural skin look that we all have.
Yo lo que quisiera hacer, teniendo la nariz nueva, poder volver a abrir las puertas con varias personas que he dejado de tener contacto.
As an anaplastologist, going on 20 years, one of the things I realized is that the prosthetic itself is kind of like a totem. It kind of represents everything that's preventing them from moving on from whatever it was, whether it be cancer or a trauma.
He says that he's happy that he's going to have this opportunity to show his brother that he can do it and that he's going to overcome this. It's giving him like his like life back, you know? Dr. Maddie's been the only person he feels that has been able to help him. He felt like a person again. He felt like someone worth something, and you know, and she made him feel that way, that he was worth being helped.
Greg always says, you know, people forget it's just a painted piece of rubber. And if you paint it right and if you sculpt it right, it transforms into something much better than that, much greater than that. But ultimately, it's a painted piece of rubber. It represents everything they think is preventing them from moving forward with their life. And that's the catharsis of doing this process.
Tengo que volverme a acostumbrar a ver mi cara.
He says he has to get used to seeing his face again.
Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome, my friend. I think that we need some good quality people doing this kind of work. But ultimately, the biggest issue I find is that there are very few doctors who are very familiar with the level of prosthetics that are available. They have a very antiquated view of prosthetics.
A lot of times I get the sense that they shrug their shoulders. They don't know where to send their patient. You know, over the years, we find that there's actually considerable demand in the Bay Area. And in an urban area that size, it really surprises me that there haven't been more locations, more facilities, more resources for consistent, regular craniofacial prosthetics and partial hand prosthetics in that area over the years.
I think more importantly, we need to get the word out that this is an available possibility. And not only is it available, but insurance covers a lot of it.
Thanks for giving him, you know, like the last years of his life, some quality.
Oh, you're so sweetie.
Everybody has their own approach to making and delivering prosthetics, but Maddie seems to be able to do everything from delivering a really phenomenally artistic prosthesis to one that's user-friendly, that she makes sure that the patient can actually handle and use the prosthesis and manage it successfully on a daily basis, to getting a big hug at the end of the process.
I'm very proud of what I do, but I also take it very seriously. And the relationships that I have with my patients are for life.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you. Thanks.
We used to do something when we were little with all my sisters. I haven't done it in a while. Papi, vamos a hacer lo que hacíamos todas nosotras cuando caminamos juntas, que brincábamos.
Así.
Ajá, 2, 1, 2 y 3.